So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Sorsha Roberts. She is the Online Communications Officer for the AKU Society. The AKU Society is a charity working to support patients with the rare debilitating disease alkaptonuria, otherwise known as black bone disease. In her role, Sorsha manages online patient communities, social media and e-news communications. She also writes and edits the weekly blog, updating patients and supporters on the work and activities of the Society. She's incredibly enthusiastic about engaging with patients, both online and offline. She recently ran a crowdfunding campaign to raise money to support research and believes the key to its success was patient involvement and engagement. Welcome, Sorsha.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm just going to start by, I know we've already kind of had who's actually contributed to a crowdfunding campaign. Of those of you who said that you had contributed to a crowdfunding campaign before, how many of you felt that you were part of a community when you were contributing or part of something bigger? So a couple of people. So what I'm going to talk about is that actually I think charities and patient groups have the biggest potential to make people feel part of a community, bigger than maybe products and things like that, because of the existing crowd. So patients are actually your biggest and best resource. You might be using a crowdfunding platform, but that's not necessarily your resource, that's your tool. Patients and your crowd and your community are actually going to be your biggest resource and your biggest driver of your actual crowdfunding campaign. So you're really lucky as patient groups and charities because you already have a crowd that believes in what you do and wants to support you. And you've really got to bring that crowd in, bring your patients in and motivate them to make this campaign their own. And when you do, it can have really great results. So in 2013, the AKU Society ran a campaign on Indiegogo to support patients participating in a clinical trial for a new treatment for AKU. And we actually raised $121,000, which is about £80,000. And then a follow-up campaign that we did this year, we raised $36,000, which is about £24,000. And this one was a smaller campaign to support patients in a smaller study to find out the best age to start the treatment. So how did we actually manage to do this? How did we manage to raise quite a lot of money when we're quite a rare disease? So many of you may know already, and many of you may have similar experiences with your own diseases, that with a rare disease, your group is quite small. So AKU patients, there are only we estimate about 1.5 million patients worldwide. And we only know of about 100 patients in the UK, roughly, and we have identified around 1,000 patients worldwide. So these are a couple of pictures from a couple of our patient workshops last year, and as you can see, kind of the core members of our group, it's quite a small group. So how were we able to raise such a large amount from such a small core community and, as many of you were asking, reach out to that wider community? So I'm going to go through this, the three kind of main points about how I think you're able to do that with your small communities. So the first is through your campaign creation itself, how to include your patient group in that process of creating the campaign. The second thing I think is really important is supporting your group and facilitating their fundraising. And the last thing I think is really important is actually building that community, a wider community, not just with your patients but with others, and raising awareness. I know a lot of you will know that that's actually incredibly important for rare diseases, the awareness aspect. So when you're creating your campaign, there are three kind of things you have to think about. The first is building your cause, one that your patients are going to really get involved with and care about. The second is pulling together a kind of patient committee to help you with your actual fundraising. And the third thing that's really crucial is building your story. So The cause itself really matters to begin with, because if you don't have a cause that your patients care about, then you're unlikely to get anybody else to care about it. So the first thing is to really get your patients involved at the first stage. Try and find a cause that all your patients will want to back and will want to kind of to raise money for themselves. You may need things like your core office costs and things like that, but that's not really a crowdfunding kind of project. It's not as compelling as something that your kind of actual patients are going to really care about and get engaged with. You need something that's quite emotionally involved. So our first campaign in 2013 was called Help Us Cure Black-Bone Disease. You can see right from the start that's quite a big campaign goal. We're trying to cure the disease. So obviously that stemmed from an awareness campaign, and once we got some funding for a clinical trial, we knew we had to raise some more money to try to bring patients from across Europe to participate in the campaign. We needed those supporting costs, and we knew our patients cared about this because we're trying ultimately to find a treatment. So it was very ambitious, and it was a very compelling cause. One this year that we did was a follow-on. So we were trying to find the best age to give treatment to AKU patients. AKU is a degenerative disease, so over time patients develop severe osteoarthritis and their bones and their cartilage turn black. So it was a real race against time, and that's kind of what we based our whole campaign on, this urgency to try and prevent the onset of the debilitating disease by doing this research. And that urgency is really important in campaigns anyway, because you're trying to raise money in a short amount of time. One of the first things we did was actually pull together a host committee of different patients. I mean, you can call it what you like, you can call it a patient committee, but this is essentially a group of patients who are active, enthusiastic, and who you can trust to really make this campaign their own. You've got to involve them right from the beginning in the creation of the actual campaign, and they're essentially your patient advisors and your patient leaders. They'll help you writing the campaign, and they'll help you think about what is a really realistic target that people can aim for. Essentially, by creating this patient committee, you're allowing those patients to own the campaign, and it's really motivating for them. They're going to really want to get involved because if they own it, they want it to succeed, and it's for them. So another thing is that if patients have helped you create it, it's going to appeal to other patients much more because it's going to be about what patients care about. You're making sure that it's a patient-driven campaign. So we had about 10 patients in the committee. This is just a few of them. So we've got Anne at the end there, who's a AKU patient, Jess, who's the mum of a little boy with AKU, and Rosie, who's an AKU patient in her early 20s. One of the things they helped us to do and helped us realise is that we really needed to break down our targets into something more manageable, understandable for people. So our goal was $30,000, and that's a big amount of money. People don't know where it's going. So one of the things we did in our campaign text when we were writing it was to break down those costs into things that patients and supporters can really understand. So we did a patient-by-patient breakdown and broke down the costs into what each patient would cost to attend the trial. And that really makes people understand what their money means, because if we raise, for example, $2,000, they know that that is one patient that is able to get a fully supported trip to go to the trial. So that's really important and motivates patients to give the money because you can see clearly where it's going. A really important thing that we've heard already is to create a story. Absolutely crucial to have a story to motivate other people to donate. And one of the things you really want to do is get the patients involved in your story. You've got to involve the patients for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it's completely logical. The campaign is for them, so you want your patients to be giving their own stories so that people understand why you're doing the campaign. It would be a bit illogical not to include your patients in developing the campaign story. The second thing is just about motivating other patients to get involved with the campaign and motivating people emotionally as well. If you have real stories, people can see the cause is real. Patients will relate to other patients' stories and want to get involved and be motivated. And people who've never heard of it before will see and understand what it means to real people. So this is Daniel. He's a little 4-year-old boy with AKU. At the moment, he's completely happy and healthy, absolutely nothing physically wrong with him at this stage. But in the future, he will develop the debilitating symptoms of AKU if he's not treated at the right age. So he was quite a core person in our campaign and a core patient story. We made a patient video where a few of our patients featured in the video giving their stories. We not only made the first main video, which was about 3 minutes long, we also made some update videos to go out throughout the campaign, telling people a more full version of the story, because obviously you've only got about 3 minutes to make your initial campaign video. You might not have time in those videos to allow each of your patients to actually explain their full story and what the campaign really means to them. So we kind of made update videos as well, so that they could go out throughout the campaign and we could have continuous updates and more stories going out. So this is Jess, the mum of Daniel, who was in the previous slide. And she featured quite strongly in the video. She was a real helper in our campaign. She actually said it better than anyone else really could. And I think that's another reason to get patients involved. You can't really script what patients will actually say. They're going to say it a lot better than you can ever say it. They're going to sum up your campaign in a sentence. And they're a lot more emotionally involved. So Jess said, to know that he was being given a drug at the right time that would prevent the onset of such a horrible disease, we'd be delighted, we'd be over the moon. So it just sums it up really why we're doing this campaign to begin with. We also had Anne in our video, and Anne is an older patient who does have some disabilities due to the disease and is walking with a stick. She is quite passionate about educating people about AKU and passionate that nobody else ever has to live with the symptoms she's had to experience. So she said it really is crucial that we find out what age to start nitisinone for patients so they do not develop any of these debilitating symptoms. So our story not only had individual stories, it actually had a kind of overarching story. We saw the little boy who has no symptoms at the moment, right through to an older patient who doesn't want anyone to experience the symptoms she's had to go through. So having a range of different patients and really explaining it to people, that's a really good idea and is really motivating for everybody. So while we were doing our campaign, we had a survey that we sent out to people, asking people for feedback on our campaign, because we wanted to know what we were doing well, what we could do better, and it was really good feedback for if we do a future campaign, we'll know what to change and what not to change. So 60% of those who donated, who answered our crowdfunding survey, actually said that they donated because they were compelled to by our campaign story. So that's really key, that your campaign story is compelling people to donate. It's one of the most important things. You need that video, you need that story in your text. The next thing you really need to do in your campaign is to help patients when they're doing their fundraising. It's a really good way of motivating them by just simply facilitating them to fundraise for you. So there's several ways you can do that, through making suggestions of the things that they can do to help you raise money, through just simply communicating all the time, and also by encouraging patients in different ways, patients and supporters. So the first thing you have to remember is that some of your patients or your supporters may never have actually done any fundraising before. So you've really got to give some ideas of how you can fundraise to those patients, because they might not have ever experienced it. One of the ways you can do that is simply by giving examples of what other patients are doing. So in our first campaign in 2013, we had one family of patients doing curry nights every single week, and inviting their friends and family round and getting them to donate for a great meal. We also had a teacher in Canada whose child has AKU. She went to her school and she got them involved in all sorts of things. She got them to do a school dress down day, a paid for hockey match, and all sorts of different things in the school. So I think what you've got to make patients aware of is it doesn't have to be a huge effort that they put in. It can be little things, or it can be a massive event that they want to put on. But either way, you've got to facilitate them to do that. One of the ways you can do this, whether a person is going to raise money through a fundraising event or whether they're simply going to tell their friends about it, is just to send them some of your campaign materials. So we sent out to all our patients some of our little business cards that had the campaign on it. We sent out some stickers to people who were doing events. We sent out some of the wristbands and some of our leaflets and posters about the event. And it all just helped make it a lot easier for them to run an event. And that was actually really key for patients who aren't online as well, because you might have a lot of patients who maybe don't go online very often. We certainly have a lot of older patients who don't really use any crowdfunding platforms, any social media. So keeping them in the community and motivating them to get involved as well and making sure they're not excluded from the campaign, that was really great, managing to contact them just by post. So one of the big things is obviously communicating with your group. You're not going to motivate them if they don't know about it. So you'll obviously know that one of the ways to do this is just by putting out regular updates. So on Indiegogo, there's a great updates page where you can send out updates. It sends it out to all of the people who've already donated as an email. But it also is displayed on your crowdfunding page itself. So you can put links out to it on social media, things like that, to update others who haven't yet donated. And that was really great. We did those really regularly, a couple of times a week. Obviously social media, keep that up to date. And also asking patients to spread the word. So with sending them out the business cards and the stickers, we ask them to give them to their friends. We ask them to repost things on social media and share the word. One of the biggest supporters was Jess, who you've already met. So this is Jess and her little boy Daniel. She was really involved in the campaign. She really made it her own, and I had calls with her kind of every other day, really. She was like an extended member of the team. She held a raffle, she did an auction, she did a nursery fundraiser at Daniel's school. And as you can see in the picture, their local football club, Brighton and Hove Albion FC, even got involved to support them. Daniel was able to go and be a mascot on Mother's Day, and they raised a lot of awareness through that. So it's not just about raising money, it's also the awareness that was raised. Jess featured in a few of her local newspapers and things like that in the local area. So she was a great person for we weren't only tapping into her, but we were tapping into her whole network. She was spreading the word even further than just her own friends. So that's one of the key ways to reach beyond your patient core group, is actually get the patients to do that reaching themselves. And one of the things she did for us was create an infographic. Her company that she used to work for, she got in contact with them and asked them to create an infographic for us. So this was one of the infographics they created, and we put that out on social media. And again, it was just raising awareness. So people may not always be able to donate money, but they can give you something. And this is one of the things we got through Jess. Another way is to encourage patients. We just need some positive encouragement to get them involved and motivated. So we had a range of perks. Now, as you've heard, perks aren't essential, you don't need them. Many people didn't actually claim their perks when they donated. You can tick a box whether you want your perk or not, and lots of people didn't want it. And in our survey, a lot of people, well, actually nobody said that they donated in order to get a perk. Everybody's had more of an altruistic need to donate. But they make the campaign a lot more exciting. They're kind of a thank you to those who want a perk. We had several different things. So one of our most popular perks was actually having your name listed on the website as a thank you. And that was such a simple one. It doesn't require much effort, but it's just that thanks and that recognition that people really enjoy. And I think some of our more material perks were quite fun as well. So we had a tote bag, and we had wristbands, and then we had bigger perks like tours around the BBC studios if you gave a lot of money. So it's having that range of perks and not ordering too many to begin with, because people may not want to claim them, people may want to be altruistic about it. So think about for your campaign what that really means, but for us it was just having a few different ranges of perks, and the thank yous were honestly the most popular one. So one of the other encouragements is just the sense of urgency. You've got to get out that actually there's a deadline for this campaign, that time is going to run out, and our whole campaign was kind of centred around that. It was called Help Us Cure Black Bone Disease, Time is Running Out. And obviously that linked really well into our actual campaign goal, which is to stop AKU, the disease progression, before it gets too bad. And obviously our logo represents that as well for this campaign. We had white sand running into black sand, and that was quite representative of people's bones and cartilage turning black over time. So we had quite a lot of symbolism in there, and we were really trying to get across that urgency, and I think that was a motivator as well for the whole community. So the final thing that's really important is building your community. You have to do it in several ways. So you can build a community that's quite global. You've really got to keep promoting it. And you've also got to keep the fun in the campaign. It's not all about the money. You've got to make that community feel involved and fun. So obviously for rare diseases, it's really important building a community. You don't just want the money, you want people to know about the disease. The awareness is just as important. So we did our campaign in dollars. This is going to be different for each of you. Both of our campaigns ran in dollars. The first one we had a lot of contributions from America, and so we thought it was quite important to keep it in dollars for the next campaign. But actually we ended up having quite a lot of contributions from Europe the second time round. So it really does depend where you're aiming your campaign. If it's just a UK-based project, you might want to just focus it with pounds, because obviously you're not necessarily going to be bringing in lots of people from around the world. We also translated our campaign into a couple of languages. We had it in Spanish and German, the most recent one, and we were able to have that just translated by a couple of volunteers who said they would do it for us. And we really tried to involve patients from around the world, because ultimately this project is about curing the disease for everybody. And so we didn't want it to be just for the UK patients or just for Europe. So one of the things we did was we got patients involved from 8 different countries around the world. We asked them to write a little blog update for us, and it was simply just their story and why they thought the campaign was so great, and how it would impact them. So that really got patients motivated, because we were asking people from around the world to get involved, not just by giving money, but contributing their own story. And people from different countries seeing those stories from around the world, it kind of made them feel like they were involved as well, because it's not just one country. It felt like it was a whole global community. So we had Tony from Wales, right through to Judah from India, and then we hopped all the way across to Flavio in Brazil. So we had lots of different countries getting involved. And it's not just about your patients. There are other supporters who will contribute, and you've really got to tap into them as well. So you may have done fundraising campaigns in the past, you may have a database of people who have contributed to you before. It's a really good idea to get in touch with them before you even start your campaign, to let them know you're going to be doing a new one, and to get them involved before you've even begun. So this is Alan. He donated to us in our first Indiegogo campaign in 2013. He'd never heard of AKU before, but he was really interested in the story that he heard through the crowdfunding site. And he actually claimed a perk to come and visit our research labs in Liverpool. So he went and visited and saw some of the research in process, and really enjoyed his visit. And as a consequence, he came back and he donated again for the second campaign. He also, as well as contributing to our campaign with money, he also contributed his own story. So we asked him to write a little blog, a little update for us on why he contributed and why he thought the cause was so important, despite never having heard of the disease before. So he actually said in his little blog that the idea that this treatment could be given to young people and possibly prevent the worst symptoms of AKU from ever developing is really exciting, and I was delighted to lend my support to their efforts again. So not only are we motivating our patients to get involved, we're also motivating a wider community. We're getting Alan involved again, asking him to tell us about why he donated, and we hoped that that would also encourage others who had donated last time to donate again, and other first-time AKU donators as well. And actually from our survey we found that 30% of those who donated to our campaign heard about it because they got an email from our previous campaign telling them about our new campaign. So it really is worth getting those people involved because you've got a wider network there already, tap into them. And if you've built a community successfully in campaigns in the past, people will want to come back and people will want to contribute again because they will have seen what their money has gone to achieve so far. So if you keep your patients and your community updated regularly, they'll know that their contribution was worth something. 25% of people found out about the campaign from a friend, and a further 25% of people found out through social media. So again, those further networks, friends of friends and things like that, that's really important to try and encourage your patients and your core group to tell others that they know about the campaign. So the last thing is to keep it fun. You don't have to always be focusing on the money. It's about building that community because you don't just want the money, you want awareness, especially for rare diseases. So you have to have some things that people can get involved with even if they don't have the money to contribute. So we ran a photo competition and we asked people to take pictures with different timing devices. So it was quite a bit of fun and it fit in with the theme of our campaign as well. It also produced quite a lot of visual content for us, so we could put this out on social media and have fresh content out there. So you kind of throughout your campaign you want to be using social media quite continuously, but you don't want to be annoying people with repeating the same thing. So it's nice to generate some fresh visual content throughout your campaign. And the winner of our campaign was 11-year-old Axel from France, who's an AKU patient. And he did this fantastic photo. It had the campaign logo in it, it had toys through the ages to represent the moving on of time, and it had a big picture of a sand timer as well. So it just really fit really well. And it's another example of how people from around the globe were getting involved, because here's a little boy from France who's heard about our campaign and got involved. So I think the final thing really is that you have to appreciate your crowd. You have to say thank you to all your donors, all your patients and all your participants, because they're all part of your community. You've got to keep them all involved. After your campaign, you should keep them updated on the progress of the campaign. Keep telling them where the money's going, what it's doing, how they've helped, because it's not really just about those few months that you're doing the crowdfunding campaign. Crowdfunding is actually for life. You want to keep that community going, you want to keep them interested in what you're doing. So you've got to ask your crowd at the end of your campaign to follow you on Twitter or sign up to your e-news, join your Facebook page, and keep them involved in the future, because it's going to be really motivating for them to see how they have helped you, and it actually will make them more likely to donate to you again in the future. So I just want to summarise at the end here with a few points I think are really important for my campaign from this talk. So motivating your patient group is really about giving them ownership of the campaign. If your patients feel that that campaign is theirs and is for them, they're going to want it to succeed. They're going to tell as many people about it as they can. And that trust is really rewarding, to trust your patients to actually spread that word wider. Awareness is also really key. It's not just about the money, it's about the value of spreading the word and adding new people to your community. You want to bring people in and make them feel like they're part of something. And stories are a really big part of that, making sure you have a really good story. And then the last thing is make it fun, because if it's fun, people will want to be involved, and it will encourage that involvement. So if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to take them.